My fiancé said, "Ew. Prenup? That's so unromantic." I answered, "Oh really?" Then I switched the venue deposit to a non-refundable charity gala in my company's name. When she tried to renegotiate the prenup next day, the contract coordinator explained where the deposit went. I, 32 male, am, or rather was, a man in love. I run a data security firm I built for my college dorm room. It's my life's work, carved out of late nights, cheap ramen, and a relentless belief in an idea. It's successful now and I'm comfortable, but I've never forgotten the grind. My fiancée, Corinne, 29, is an interior design influencer. We met 2 years ago, and I was completely captivated. She was vibrant, beautiful, and seemed to appreciate the world I'd built. We got engaged 6 months ago. The wedding planning started immediately, driven almost entirely by her and her mother, Beatrice. My only input was, whatever makes you happy, and I wrote the checks. The venue they chose was a breathtaking historical estate. It was perfect, she said. The centerpiece of her dream wedding, which was quickly becoming an elaborate production for her social media followers. The deposit was a staggering $50,000 due this week. With a commitment of this magnitude on the horizon, I did what I felt was logical and prudent. I had my lawyer draft a prenuptial agreement. It wasn't a weapon, it was a shield. It protected my company, my premarital asset, and the livelihoods of my employees. It stipulated that anything we built together would be split 50-50. It was generous on spousal support in the event of a split. It was, in my lawyer's words, eminently fair and ironclad. I chose a quiet evening to bring it up. We'd just had a nice dinner at home. I slid the folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "It's just a legal thing we need to handle before the wedding," I said gently. "A prenup. My lawyer says it's standard practice for anyone with a business." Her smile vanished. She picked it up like it was contaminated, flipping through a few pages without reading them. Her face tightened. "A prenup?" She looked at me, her eyes wide with what looked like theatrical disbelief. That is so unromantic, Leo." I was taken aback. "It's not about romance, Corinne. It's about protecting the company. It protects you too." "It says you don't trust me," she said, her voice rising. "It says you're already planning our divorce. How could you do this to us?" The conversation devolved from there. She refused to read it. She called it an insult. She cried, accusing me of seeing our marriage as a business deal. The next day her mother called me. "Leo, darling," Beatrice began, her voice dripping with condescension, "Corinne is a romantic soul. These sorts of vulgar documents upset her terribly. You're putting a price on her love." The pressure was immense. They were a united front of emotional manipulation. But one thing stuck with me. Neither of them ever said, "We don't need this because our love is forever." They said, "This is unromantic and insulting." The objection wasn't to the implication of divorce, but to the existence of financial rules. That evening, after another circular, tearful argument where Corinne said she couldn't possibly sign such a hurtful document, I felt a switch flip inside me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was a cold, quiet clarity. She had set the terms. Our love was a fairy tale, and this legal document was a monster trying to spoil it. Okay. The venue deposit was due the next morning. I had the wire transfer details ready, but I didn't send it. Instead, I called Annika, the contracts coordinator at the estate. My company has a small philanthropic wing, something I'm passionate about, and we host an annual charity gala to raise money for tech scholarships. "Annika," I said calmly. "It's Leo. I need to make a change to my booking. The personal event I was planning is on hold. I'd like to redirect that $50,000 deposit to book the grand ballroom for a corporate charity gala instead. Same date." There was a pause. "Oh," she said. "Certainly. So you're canceling the wedding booking and making a new booking for a gala under your company's name?" "Precisely," I said. "The deposit will now be a non-refundable payment toward the Tech Scholars Gala. Please confirm once that's processed." She did. It took 10 minutes. The money was sent, the contract was amended, the date was now secured for my company's event, not our wedding. The next day Corinne came to me, her demeanor completely changed. She was soft, apologetic. "Leo, honey," she said, stroking my arm. I was emotional. I overreacted. "Let me see that silly paper again. I'm sure we can renegotiate a few things to make it feel more us." I just nodded. "Okay." She spent the next hour on the phone with her mother, no doubt strategizing. A little while later, she came into my home office, phone to her ear. Yes, Annika, hi. It's Corinne. I just had a quick question about the lighting options for the… What gala? No, the date is for my wedding to Leo. I watched as the color drained from her face. Her eyes darted toward me, wide with panic. The silence stretched. What do you mean the deposit was used for a gala? She whispered into the phone, her voice cracking. That's our wedding deposit. There has to be a mistake. I didn't say a word. I just leaned back in my chair and waited. A few seconds later, my phone started ringing. It was her. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text came through. Leo, call me now. What did you do? The fairy tale was over. The monster was real. Update 1. The initial fallout was a screaming match. Corinne drove over, barging into my apartment. It wasn't sadness or hurt, it was pure rage. You humiliated me, she yelled. You went behind my back and canceled our wedding venue for a stupid work party. I put a personal event on hold, I said, my voice level. The one you refused to sign a standard legal document for. The deposit wasn't wasted. It went to a good cause. My wedding is not a personal event, she shot back. It's our life, and you threw it away because I wouldn't sign your insulting piece of paper. During this tirade, her eyes fell on a small kinetic sculpture on my bookshelf. It's called the Engine. It's made from the processors and RAM of the first server I ever built, the one that ran the prototype of my company's software. It's clunky, weird, and to me, it's priceless. It represents the foundation of everything I have. You don't get it, she spat, gesturing at it with disgust. You care more about your stupid company and that ugly hunk of metal than you do about me. That was the moment. That was when the last bit of sentimental fog cleared. She didn't just disagree with the prenup, she actively disdained the work and sacrifice it was meant to protect. The next day, her parents, Beatrice and Desmond, initiated their two-pronged attack. Desmond called first. He's one of those men who talks like a bulldog but has the bite of a chihuahua. Son, you've made a grave error, he grumbled. You've embarrassed my daughter. You've embarrassed my family. You need to make this right immediately. Making it right, I replied, involves Corinne sitting down with her lawyer and mine to review the prenup. He scoffed. Don't be naive. Fix the venue situation first. Show some good faith. It wasn't a request. Then came Beatrice. She called an hour later, her voice all syrupy concern. Leo, darling, I think I have a solution, she cooed. Corinne is just so caught up in the romance of it all. Why don't you two just get married and you can sort out the silly paperwork after the honeymoon? Once she feels secure as your wife, she'll sign anything. I almost laughed. The oldest trick in the book, a postnuptial agreement, is infinitely harder to enforce. Beatrice, I said politely, that's not going to happen. The prenup is signed before the marriage license, or there is no marriage license, the wedding is on hold. I hung up before she could respond. Corinne's strategy shifted next. The anger was replaced by a flood of texts. Old photos of us, happy and smiling, long paragraphs about our favorite memories. Then, woven into the nostalgia, I miss this. I miss us. I know we can get it back. Followed by, my followers are asking for wedding updates every day. The vendors are calling. Can't we just fix this? Please, just call Annika and get our date back. It was all about the performance, the public image. Not once did she say, I'm willing to talk about the prenup to save our relationship. It was always, get the venue back to save our wedding. I knew I couldn't stay on the defensive. Her family viewed this as a negotiation where they could bully and manipulate me into folding. I needed to change the game entirely. I held all the cards. I just had to decide how to play them. I spent the weekend formalizing plans for the gala. I hired a professional event planner. I started reaching out to my network for corporate sponsorships. I was turning their stupid work party into the biggest philanthropic event my industry had seen in years. I also consulted my lawyer again. He advised me to document every call, every text. He also drafted a formal letter to Corinne, stating that all future discussions regarding our relationship and the prenuptial agreement would need to take place with legal counsel present, given the involvement of her parents and their attempts to apply pressure. She didn't like that. I got a one-word text back. Coward. Maybe. But I'd rather be a coward than a fool. Update 2. The quiet war has gone public. They made the first move, and it was as clumsy and arrogant as I expected. It started with a call from a well-known society blogger, the kind that covers high-profile engagements and weddings. Her tone was professionally sympathetic. "I'm working on a story," she said, "about your recent change in plans. A source close to the family tells me that Corinne is simply devastated, that you got cold feet and pulled the plug on your dream wedding, leaving her heartbroken." I could practically hear Beatrice whispering in the background. They were trying to paint me as the villain, the cold, unfeeling tech mogul who broke the heart of the sweet, romantic influencer. It was a classic narrative, and it was a mistake. "That's an interesting angle," I said calmly to the blogger, "but it's not the full story. In fact, you're missing the real exclusive." "Oh," I could feel her perk up. "My company and I are thrilled to officially announce the inaugural Leo Grant Tech Scholars Gala, which will be held at that same estate on that same night. We're launching a major new scholarship fund for underprivileged students in STEM fields. The event is already attracting significant corporate sponsorship. It's a project born from a desire to turn a personal change of direction into a massive positive for the community." I gave her the details, the mission statement, the names of a few prominent sponsors who had already committed. I didn't mention Corinne or the prenup once. I didn't have to. I just reframed the entire situation. The narrative was no longer jerk fiancé cancels wedding. It was now visionary CEO launches major philanthropic initiative. The article dropped 24 hours later. It was a masterpiece of PR jiu-jitsu. It mentioned the postponed nuptials in passing, but focused almost entirely on the gala, painting me as generous and forward-thinking. It quoted my mission to invest in the future. The comments were overwhelmingly positive. Corinne's family must have been apoplectic. Their attempt to shame me had backfired spectacularly, making them look incredibly petty. Who argues against charity scholarships? Their next move was more direct. Desmond left me a voicemail. His voice was low and menacing. "You think you're clever, boy," it began. "This little charity stunt. You don't know who you're messing with. I have friends, powerful friends. A person's reputation can be a fragile thing in your business." It was a laughably vague threat, but it was a threat nonetheless. I saved the audio file, emailed it to my lawyer with the subject line, "For the file," and then blocked Desmond's number. Then came Corinne. She showed up at my door, not angry this time, but looking broken. The performance of a lifetime. Tears streamed down her face. "Leo, look what you're doing to us," she sobbed. "To my family, my father's worried sick, my mother can't stop crying, this whole thing has spiraled. Just tell me what you want me to sign. I'll sign the paper." For a second, a tiny part of me felt a pang of something. Guilt? Pity? But then I looked closer. Her eyes weren't just sad, they were calculating. This was a last-ditch effort, a strategic surrender. "It's too late for that, Corinne," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "What? No, I said I'll sign it," she insisted, her voice hardening. "We can still fix this. We can call the estate, explain there was a mix-up. We can postpone the gala." "The gala has raised over $200,000 in sponsorships in the last 48 hours, I stated flatly. "It's not being postponed. As for the prenup, any document signed under this much duress would be worthless." "So what are you saying?" she asked, the tears stopping as she realized her act wasn't working. "I'm saying," I took a breath, "that our engagement is over. Please have your lawyer contact mine to arrange the return of the ring and your other belongings from my apartment." She stared at me, her mouth hanging open. The mask of the heartbroken fiancé fell away, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated fury. "You will regret this, Leo," she hissed. "I will make sure of it." She stormed off. I closed the door, my heart pounding. There was no joy in this, no sense of victory, just a profound, aching sense of relief, like a man who'd just stepped off a train track moments before the express roared past. Final update. It's been 7 months since I made that call to the venue. The gala was 2 months ago. My life is different, calmer. The breakup was not clean. Corinne did not, as they say, go quietly into the night. Her first move, through her lawyer, was to demand the return of the engagement ring, which I had already arranged, plus a 5-figure sum for emotional distress and reputational damage. She claimed the public cancellation of the wedding and my subsequent media campaign for the gala had destroyed her influencer brand. My lawyer's response was swift and brutal. He sent back a polite letter declining her request, attached with a transcript of her father's threatening voicemail. The letter noted that any further attempts to extract money would result in us exploring legal options regarding attempted extortion. We never heard about reputational damages again. Her next dirty trick was an attempt to sabotage the gala. A week before the event, anonymous emails were sent to my top corporate sponsors. They contained wild, fabricated allegations about me, financial misconduct, creating a hostile work environment, the works. It was clearly designed to spook them into pulling their funding. Thankfully, my reputation in the industry is solid. I proactively called my biggest sponsors, explained I was in the midst of a contentious breakup, and assured them the claims were baseless. No one pulled out. In fact, 2 of them increased their donations as a show of support. The Leo Grant Tech Scholars Gala was a resounding success. We raised nearly $500,000. Standing on that stage in the very room where I was supposed to get married, looking out at a crowd of people supporting a cause I deeply believe in, was surreal. I spoke about the importance of building things, companies, futures, communities. In the speech, I looked over at the engine, which I had brought from my office to display on a pedestal as a symbol of our foundation's origins. It felt like I had taken their ugliest accusation, that I cared more for that hunk of metal than for her, and turned it into the shining centerpiece of my new beginning. So what happened to Corinne? Her brand did take a hit, but it was self-inflicted. When her attempts at intimidation and sabotage failed, she tried to play the victim online. She posted a long, vague story about a toxic ex who tried to control her with money. But the narrative was already set. The story of the gala was too positive, too public. Her followers saw a lavish wedding evaporate and a major charity appear in its place. The comments weren't kind. People called her materialistic, entitled, and shallow. Her engagement numbers plummeted. She lost a major sponsorship deal with a home decor company. Last I heard, she moved back in with her parents. Beatrice and Desmond are apparently furious that their investment didn't pay off. There was no apology, no moment of realization on her part. Entitled people rarely believe they're the problem. In her story, she will always be the romantic princess, and I will always be the villain who locked her in a tower made of legal documents. As for me, it was an expensive and painful lesson in vetting the people you let into your life. The stress was immense, but walking away was the best decision I ever made. My work is thriving. The foundation is my new passion project. I've been spending more time with friends who knew me back when I was living on cheap ramen. They never liked Corinne, but they were too polite to say so. The other night, one of them asked if I felt satisfied, getting revenge. I thought about it for a moment. It wasn't revenge, I said. It was just consequences. She wanted a fairy tale wedding without any regard for the real-world work that paid for it. She ended up with no wedding and a very public lesson in what happens when you mistake a person's kindness for weakness. She wanted the crown, but she didn't want the partnership. In the end, I'm the one who feels like I've been given a kingdom, a quiet, peaceful kingdom of my own making, and that's better than any fairy tale.